place. As soon as we get, as you can see from the drawing here, to the west end of Theodore Wirth, or to the east end of Theodore Wirth Park, that's where we will make a turn, and we will go underneath a new bridge on westbound Highway 55. We'll go down to the Burlington Northern Railroad corridor and then start heading north along BNSF Railroad property. And even though we're technically in the city of Golden Valley here, we put this piece up because one of the things, as I was here last time, that was not known was were we going to have a station on Plymouth Avenue at Theodore Wirth Park? The answer to that is yes. And so we'll be reconstructing that Plymouth Avenue bridge. We'll have a station right to the north of Plymouth Avenue there, so you can see the Minneapolis neighborhoods to the east and then Theodore Wirth Park to the west. That's a station that you can see where the line is. It's technically in Golden Valley, but it's really serving a high number of Minneapolis residents. And then to the north off of this drawing, there'll also be a station at Golden Valley Road as well, which is also on the railroad corridor just next to Golden Valley Road. So that's really all that we had to present today. I'll be here in case there's any follow-up questions from the council as necessary, but we really appreciate staff's work with us. They've been with us weekly for the last year. We've worked on a lot of issues. We've talked about a lot of things. We think we've got a positive project to bring forward with the extension of this LRT. So thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. Any further questions regarding the presentation? Seeing none, I will then open the public hearing. Given the volume of people interested in this, we will use a timer, correct? And I believe you have it set for 3 minutes. And so we want to be respectful of everyone's ability to address the body today. I will start with the list, and we'll just proceed as follows, beginning with Alexis Penny. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Chair, council members. Thanks again for letting me speak. Specifically, I really want to thank so much council members Gordon and Bender for bringing up Penn Avenue and the fact that this is sincerely a missed opportunity with reducing our lane width that we have here on Olson Memorial Highway. I sincerely think this is a real social and economic injustice that's taking place in North Minneapolis. Particularly, there will be a Title VI complaint filed against the city with regard to Olson Memorial Highway and a number of issues that we have concerns around. The development along Olson Memorial Highway needs to embody the community's vision. 30% affordable housing is what we're seeking. In addition to that, I did note that the gentleman had mentioned that there would be a reconstruction on 94 with regard to the bike lane running from Theodore Wirth. Let's just ensure that we get it all the way to Target Field. Let's get it all the way to downtown. Let's do it right the first time. I've already made that clear. And then in addition to making it safer, we all know that this is not doing that. There's schools, there's parks, there's residential housing. We need to be mindful of the people that live in this neighborhood, and I'm going to let them speak now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Steve Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, my name is Steve Kramer with Minneapolis Downtown Council. I'll be brief. You do have a lot of community voices here, and important to hear them. But I also wanted to provide a perspective about the importance of building out the regional transit system with Blue Line Extension as an important step in that system for the overall health and well-being of our core downtown. The critical element for our 2025 plan is to build that system out. Lead the nation in transportation options is our fairly immodest goal in that regard, and this is an important step in that process. We need to provide more and better ways for people to get to and around downtown, and this is one of those steps. So we certainly stand strongly in support of municipal consent, along with support for the Orange Line, support for other arterial BRT lines that are in the planning process, and we'll also look forward to working with you and many others to crack the nut at the legislature of finding a new and sustainable revenue source to make all of these projects happen. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Richard Adair, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Richard Adair, 200 Upton Avenue South. I live 5 minutes walk away from the Penn Avenue station, and I'm always walking and trying to get my bike across 55. And I also appreciate the hard work that the various staffers and community members have done to make this a better crossing. That's not what I want to talk about in my 3 minutes. I think everyone in the room would agree that Minneapolis needs to work as hard as it can and as quickly as it can to reduce racial disparities and make sure that all its citizens have the same opportunity to get ahead. What I would like to talk about is being as smart as we can. What works? One example is early childhood education. There's lots of data that 3- and 4-year-olds in Head Start do better than their peers in high school and as young adults. What about transit? A large national study done at Harvard that was released last year looked at what neighborhood factors were associated with children who were born into poverty being able to escape it. What do you think was the most important factor? School test scores? Crime in the neighborhood? Percentage of two-parent families? No, the most important factor was transportation. Think about why. Being able to get to and from work quickly means more time to parent, more time to meet and make friends with all kinds of different people and learn from each other. To connect both we need to build out both light rail lines, and we need to connect the north side, not only thinking about pedestrians, but bus service. We need bus transit, rapid transit on Penn, and we need a circulator bus. Look at my hands for a second here, that goes west on Plymouth or some other east-west street, south on Penn, east on 394, and north on Van Wyck. Since I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years, I'd like to acquaint you with a couple of facts of local geography. This route is possible because in the 1970s, the Bryn Mawr neighborhood insisted on an extra lane eastbound on 394 so that vehicles going from Penn to Dunwoody don't have to merge with neighborhood traffic. And because City Council person Jackie Cherry Holmes, who occupied Mr. Yang's seat at the time, insisted that Van Wyck Boulevard extend all the way south to Dunwoody so that North Minneapolis could be connected with the rest of the city. Let's leverage these wise decisions from years past and give Northsiders a quick and reliable ride to work. It's a matter of basic fairness. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We now will go to Alyssa Rich. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, thank you. My name is Alyssa Rich. I live at 824 Vincent in the Willard Hay Homewood neighborhood. The reason I bought my home was the proximity to Theodore-Wirth Park. There's a couple access points along the parkway that this neighborhood uses. Granted, they may be unofficial. The community definitely uses them. And so my concern with the light rail going in is the separation of this just gem of a neighborhood. It's got access to downtown and access to the park. It's a safe neighborhood, a lot of longtime community or neighbors that live there and that use the park on a daily basis. So I'm hoping that we can come up with a way to make sure that this community continues to have access and safe access to the park. I know that that we're trying to just make Northside a safe place for people and make it a place that people enjoy. It gets a bad rap, and I don't want to lose this community by separating. This is an asset for this community. Also, my other concern is environmental. There's deer just 2 blocks from my house, coyote, eagles, everything, and so I use it. I see it every day, and I'm concerned with the trains going through that. I just want to make sure that we pay attention. I'm in support of the train. I think it's going to add to property value, but I just don't want to lose with this community and the reasons that I bought my home in this area. So thank you.
Thank you. Nestor Garcia, please come forward and name and address for the record.
Hello, good morning. I live in Harrison neighborhood. I've been there for 2.5 years now, and I really enjoy it there. And I support the new light rail that's going to be going through Olson, but there's a few concerns that I have. One of them would be employment opportunities that were stated in the redevelopment plan. For 2015, the fair market rent for a two-bedroom apartment in Minnesota was $894. In order to afford this, a family must make about $35,700 annually, which equals out to $17.20 an hour. I hope that these jobs that are created are a living wage, so that families can afford to stay in the community that they were brought up in. I'm afraid that there would be some sort of gentrification forcing people out of the community. And I want to keep the community how it is as much as possible as it is right now. Other concerns that we've heard from people in the area, especially in Park Plaza, are construction during the summer. A lot of the apartments there have double panel windows. In the summer, they don't have AC, so they got to keep them open. And they're afraid that with all the construction, dust and the debris will get in there. So if they close their window, there's going to be pretty warm temperature for the kids and the elderly. Another thing is timing for crossing Olson. Like people mentioned before, there's schools, there's kids crossing all the time. I take the bus all the time, so the 19 drops me off on Morgan, and I got to cross to Glenwood, which is where I live. And I honestly wait a long time to cross, and, sometimes, I have to either run across or just walk really fast, and, I'm fully capable of walking, but with people with disabilities, with wheelchairs or whatever, that might be a little bit harder for them. As well as another concern would be keeping as many trees as possible around. We're in danger of global warming, and keeping it green as possible would be better for everybody in the community. Also, the fares for the light rail, hopefully keeping it where it's at now and not increasing it in the long run will encourage more people to jump to use the service. So, yeah.
Thank you for that commentary. And I'll move to Richard Panzeroni. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, good morning, council members. I've lived in the Harrison neighborhood since 1980 for 36 years, and I've seen it go through a lot of changes. I've seen it go from bad to worse, and now it's really improving, and I'd like to see that continue. I want to speak for the needs of senior citizens. The senior citizens that I've talked to in my neighborhood are really excited about the Blue Line extension, particularly the ones that are in wheelchairs and use walkers. Getting on the light rail is a lot easier than getting on a city bus. Also, they're excited about the transit shelters that can offer some warming elements and a little more room. If you've ever boarded a bus on Olson Memorial Highway in the middle of the winter when it's below zero and you got a 20-mile-an-hour wind and the traffic along Olson Memorial Highway is speeding along at 40, 45 miles an hour, it's not a real fun place to wait for a bus. So the senior citizens, essentially, because of the weather and the accommodations, a lot of them become shut-ins, and I think that's a very unfortunate thing. Also, the traffic lights, the button you press to get across Olson, gives you approximately 30 seconds to get across. Now, I'm a handicapped individual. Many of the elderly on the north side in the Harrison neighborhood are also, and it seems that maybe an easy fix would be just to give more time when you press that button. But I don't just want to speak for the senior citizens. I want to speak for the youth also. As Mr. Adair touched upon, having a light rail would be a wonderful thing in providing the transportation that's so desperately needed for the youth of the Northside community. Having a job on the weekends or during the summer helps them approach adulthood with a certain level of responsibility and dedication that I really think helps to raise an adult with the kinds of values of responsibility and dedication that is so needed today. I'm looking forward to the light rail, and many of the people I've talked to, if we could just all get together and see that it's designed in an efficient fashion that serves the needs of everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Moving down, we have, and that was Richard Panzeroni at 1903 4th Avenue North, correct? Okay. And then we have William Crenshaw. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm William Crenshaw. I live at 324 Russell Avenue North, and I live in the Harrison neighborhood. I'm a member of the board. I support the development of the light rail, but I also have some concerns about it. There's a lot of mature trees that are going to come down on the median on Olson, and the north side is disproportionately affected by air pollution. So we're concerned about all those trees coming down and would like each tree that's cut down to be replanted in our neighborhood or over north. We also wanted the existing houses and businesses to be preserved instead of just knocking them down. We want green space increased and access provided for it. We're also concerned about dust during construction and want that minimized as much as possible. We also want new development to be limited to 5 stories because we don't want the neighborhood feel to change. And we also support the bike lane. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Thomas Beaumont, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Morning, I'm Tom Beaumont, and I live in downtown Minneapolis near Loring Park. Full disclosure, my family is transit dependent by choice, so anything I say in favor of transit benefits me personally, so I'll let you know that right away. I just want to make a couple of observational remarks that come from my position over the past 15 years as a up front and center host, if you will, of visitors from out of town, from the region as well as from the rest of the country and even the world, at one of the major hotels downtown, which hosts conferences and conventions of all sorts, from the Republican convention on up or down, depending on your point of view, to small conventions from many parts of the region. When I'm trying to work with people that are from out of town, trying to familiarize themselves with the city, trying to understand how to negotiate their way around and really how to make their lives a little easier in a land that they're not all that familiar with, I frequently try to get people to use transit as an effort to save them a little bit of money, to help them see the city a little better than you can in a cab, and just to help them get a feel for the city as a whole. I found almost to a person that folks will not ride the bus. You can offer them as much direction as you possibly can muster as to how, when, and where to get the bus. You can offer them all sorts of incentives, and if they're frightened of the bus, they don't see it as if you will, a world-class, much overused term, but as a world-class way of transportation. Equally, on the other side of the coin, when I talk with them about light rail, show them the easily negotiable maps and so on and so forth, most of them are actually quite delighted for the opportunity to try something different and to have a chance to go to major places in our community in a way that's convenient and almost 24-hour service for them, so they don't have to worry about missing a bus or missing a ride or anything of that sort. It's also important that our light rail does serve currently the airport as well as Union Station, which is the base for what little Amtrak service we have currently. But hopefully budding. So I just want to say that in service to our city, serving the region much better and much more efficiently, and being much more welcoming and open to people from around the world and from out greater Minnesota. I want to keep attention on light rail. I also might make one other remark in reference to something that was said a little earlier about the efforts to work on highway, is it 55, 65? The highway that the light rail will go on. It's politically important, but I'm not sure of the wisdom of working very, very hard and spending a lot of money to make it a lot easier for people to continue in their automobile when we're looking for people to find an option. So, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We will now call up Dimitri Powers. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Chair and council members. My name is Dimitri Powers, Transit-Oriented Development Organizer for Harrison Neighborhood Association. We support the Harrison Neighborhood, along with Harrison Neighborhood Association, supports the development of the Blue Line Extension Light Rail Project as an investment to catalyze development and new investments for the neighborhood, but we do not support it as a commuter line. We would like to emphasize that Harrison is not an extension of downtown or the North Loop, and that we do not want a downtown feel. We also like to emphasize that designs are created that are pedestrian friendly and fully accessible, that inhibits crime and improves the sense of safety, as well as increasing crossing times. We also want to emphasize that new development heights be limited to 5 stories, and that Harrison supports mixed-use development. We also like to emphasize that any new housing investments be made at a minimum of 30% affordable housing options, with numbers of units and rents that reflect the demographics of Harrison neighborhood at current area median incomes, and using a cost burden analysis. We would also like to emphasize that any new economic development that's put into the neighborhood as far as jobs provide short and long-term living wage jobs for Harrison residents as well as residents of North Minneapolis. We'd also like to emphasize that we'd like green space along Olsen to be preserved, as well as a plan put in place to replace the trees in the median of Olsen within the neighborhood in North Minneapolis area. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'll call Penny Serrara. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Pani Siarat. I work for Lao ASEAN Center. I came here with many people from the Olsen Townhome. Olsen Townhome located on the south side of Highway 55 and Humboldt. They live there for many, many years, I think. I like a public housing. They right there go through there. Hopefully, the fare for using light rail is cheap. And also, she concerned, and everybody else concerned. They live there. They have a garden. They want to keep the garden, make sure because they understand they have a new development there in that area. They're like a new townhome or something. If the new townhome build up, make sure low income affordable housing for them. And last thing, they want to keep the garden there for enjoyment for the community, for the own people live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Thanks.
No,
okay.
Can I speak? I do the translation.
Sure, that would be fine.
My name is Jompam Sudali, and I live in the Olsen Townhome. And I am speaking for all Laotians who living in Olsen Townhome. For the new development in the future, any new housing development should include minimum 30% to 40% of unit as affordable housing, please including or acceptable lounge. Please keep the garden. We are needed. The garden is the only place for elderly daily habit activity in reasonable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next, I have Steve Kramer, but I think he already spoke, unless it's a different Steve Kramer. And then Richard. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong list. Sorry. I think it's Roxay Rathanam. I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly. From the Gerard Terrace. From Gerard Terrace. Okay, seeing none, I'll just go down to Noel Barber. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Noel Barber. I work for the Harrison Neighborhood Association as an environmental justice and climate justice organizer. And you've already heard several residents express concerns about rents that they can afford, 30% affordable housing guaranteed for development on Olson Memorial Highway, walkable neighborhoods, safe neighborhood. And I want to talk a little bit about our ability, which is not guaranteed, to drink clean water and breathe clean enough air in our community. And we know today more than ever that that's not something we can take for granted at all. And the promise of the train is to reduce carbon emissions, to reduce traffic, to reduce our part in accelerating climate change. So let's see a one-to-one replacement of trees that are removed because of the construction of the light rail, and added variety of trees. Variety would guarantee, or at least prevent, any one disease from wiping out that investment. And then a one-to-one replacement of trees would also inhibit the movement of urban runoff into our watershed, Bassett Creek and the Mississippi River watershed, both of which Harrison neighborhood falls into. So let's also listen to Harrison Heritage Park and Near North call for safer intersections, at least double crossing time. That 30 seconds is not enough for folks to make it even halfway across. So many of the children in the neighborhood of Harrison have to leave the neighborhood for schooling, and we owe it to our future to have safe passage to and from school. And I think that's all I'd like to say, but I'm very happy to see everyone here and speaking their truths. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your testimony. Moving down, we have Chamkin Saudale, Redeemer Lutheran Church. Oh, just did. Okay, thank you. Moving down, Thomas Seiberg. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Chair and Council members. I'm Thomas Seberg. I am a Harrison resident. Live in the Harrison neighborhood, live at 1814 Glenwood Avenue, apartment 204. Today I'm wearing two hats, one as a resident of the Harrison neighborhood and one as speaking on behalf of Redeemer Lutheran Church, of which I am on staff. On the latter, on the previous, I stand in support of everything the residents of Harrison and my neighbors and the association have said. It's valid, it is important, and I can't reiterate that enough. On the latter, by this coming Friday, Redeemer Lutheran Church will have filed against MnDOT a complaint on their discriminatory practices being out of compliance with the federal Title VI non-discrimination program. With regards to this very same 1.5 miles of Olson Memorial that the Blue Line extension is being further developed upon, the neighborhood just wants to see the same benefits afforded it as is seen in other MnDOT roads and projects across the state. The issues continue to be the length of time it takes to cross this community barrier, the yearly neglected maintenance and safety of sidewalks, of snow and ice-covered curb cutouts, an ADA concern. The vehicular accidents and pedestrian and bike safety and fatalities within this too fast and much too dense traffic corridor. The road is near impassable with the development, and it's near impassable. And with the development of the Blue Line extension, it will be impassable to the community, being an absolute dividing barrier to the community. I ask that the Transportation Committee, the Council, and the City work with Redeemer Lutheran Church and the residents of Harrison and of Near North and the North Side to hold MnDOT accountable for their direct discrimination, to ensure MnDOT puts the financial resources into this project and highway that is continues to neglect doing. With this project, let's make sure this discrimination ends. There is an elementary school, there is a library and community center all along Olson Memorial directly, let alone just a few blocks away. So, as project office, as the head of the project office, Dan Soller had said, there is greater than 30,000 vehicles that drive along Olson Memorial, whereas MnDOT is putting millions of dollars into the St. Croix River crossing with a projected daily vehicular travel of 20,000 cars. So, as Olson is the main reliever for 394, let's make sure that MnDOT, I'm asking the city to help make sure and hold accountable MnDOT in them refusing to continue to put financial investment in Olson Memorial. And I know that this project can and should be received